Okay, hey guys, it's been a hot minute since I have done one of these. Summer was crazy with kids home, school or not in school, all that kind of stuff. Now my kids are back in school. I wanted to find some time to start doing these. And so I'll probably in the future take summers off, but then again, find more people because it's so much fun. Like, seriously, y'all know I love people and I'm a weirdo and I love connecting with people, especially people that I don't know. There's something about just getting out of your comfort zone and being like, hey, you want to do this? And it's so awesome because we have that connection of adoption with like all these, birth moms, everything that I interview and those kinds of things. So today I have Chloe and she's just the cutest. And I found her on Instagram, reached out to her, and obviously she's just awesome and said yes. She's a fellow adoptee. So I am super excited to hear from her. She's got some fun content on there. I love how people adoption, they just take it different and flow with it and do their own things with it. So I'm super excited to hear from her. So I will turn the time over to her and let her introduce herself. So go ahead, Chloe.
Thank you so much. No, I'm super stoked to be here. So yeah, my name is Chloe. I am the founder and CEO of Pineapple Mindset. I'll get more into that a little bit later, but so I'm a Korean adoptee. I was adopted when I was 5 months old. I got adopted by a mom and a dad and a sister, and she's actually also adopted from South Korea as well. And how this whole adoption thing happened with my family, it's an interesting story. So my dad's older sister, she focused on her career, hell yeah, go women empowerment. And then she realized that she wanted to be a mom with her husband, and she actually looked into Korean adoption. And she adopted a daughter and a son. And then my parents, they decided that they wanted to also grow their family. And they were like, well, it worked out for my aunt. And so it did it as well with my sister. And they're like, we want to keep growing our family. And so then I was adopted. And so actually within our family, it's interesting that there's actually more adoptees and there are, I guess, blood related siblings. Because then also then later in my life, another aunt and uncle, they adopted from America. So there are six adoptees and two blood related cousins. So that's always a little funny joke in our family. But yeah, so I was adopted. I grew up in a very, I would say, like very white suburban area. And I mean, there wasn't really a lot of Asians growing up where I was. So in school, while like I said, like I had an older sister that was also a Korean adoptee. And so I had that to look up to. But around like my daily life, like I would be teased like in elementary school, just because one, I had glasses and an eye patch because I had a lazy eye. And so instead of the whole 4 eyes, I was called 3 eyes. And kids just were really mean, really, really mean. And so first it was teasing from elementary school. And then in middle school, when we started learning about, I guess, a little bit more about like the Asian, not like learning correctly about the Asian culture, but like the Vietnam War or like something like that. People started using the word chink and started calling me chink. And then I remember like just people yelling at me and saying like, go back to your own country, or like, or oh, go work in the sweatshops, because we started learning about those. And in high school, it started getting a little bit better. And that's more because of myself, and which I would say is it's almost unhealthy. So I started to realize that people I don't know if it was respected, but at least stopped teasing me when I started achieving things. So like if I got into a leadership position, or if I got good grades, or if I just did something right. And maybe it wasn't accolades from the students, but accolades from faculty and teachers, and that made me feel better. And so I started to realize that I needed to be perfect. If I'm perfect and I start doing things right and I start achieving things, then people have less things to make fun of me about, and I have more arsenal in my pocket. And so I started getting this just over overachiever mindset and perfectionist mindset. And so anytime I did anything, even small mistakes, I just held on to it. And it started to really just like build up more and more in high school, where I felt that I just could never make other people happy. I could never make people, not make fun of me or to think that I'm an okay person. And I just started going down numerous spirals and had really negative thinking in my head. And I was so young, and mental health just wasn't really talked about. And so I thought this was unfortunately normal, like, oh, all this like really self-hate talk in my head I thought was normal. And then everyone was hearing this. And I just got tired and was so overwhelmed, and was actually I don't even think it was like a big event had happened. It was just like this overwhelmingly of just negative thinking. And I decided to overdose on pain meds in my year. And I just wanted to stop, and I was just wanting to not deal with it anymore. And I felt that would be the easiest way. Luckily, I didn't take enough, and I was able to overcome that, and luckily was able to realize that, oh, this isn't normal. There are things that I can do to not feel this way, or to work on my mindset. So from there, I started reaching out to more people. Once I hit college, I started seeing a therapist, um, and started learning about just like being vulnerable. And it was one of the most powerful lessons that I learned of, if I start to share when I'm sad, or like when things are going wrong with me, or just like in imperfections, right? You start to hear other people's stories, and it's the most like beautiful, beautiful thing. And you start to relate, and you start to connect in a deeper level. And that's when I started figuring out that connecting on this vulnerability and connecting in that way, I grew way, way bigger, better, and deeper friendships and a stronger community. And growing my community, I realized that I had strength to lean on other people. And so after college, I started feeling way more confident about being different, in like being Asian and being adopted and having my own story. And so I decided to go to South Korea, to teach English. And I wanted to be a role model and show that, like, hey, you can be goofy and weird. You don't have to wear makeup, and to these, other women and children in Korea. And so it's so fun to do that. And I realized that I just like, I didn't have the opportunity. I just didn't really have the opportunity to learn more about my Korean culture until I was there. And being there, it was wonderful. I got closer to my roots. Also, I learned to respect, what my birth mom went through. I got to respect um, just that whole process, have a deeper understanding, respect different roots that I have. And then I actually was able to meet my birth mom. I did a search to look for medical history, and very, very rare, but I actually um, got connected with her within 11 months, and that is super rare. I feel like the other adoptees would totally understand. My friends, I thought they think that's normal. I'm like, it's not. So they connected with her, and she actually wanted to meet me, and so I was able to meet her, and I was able to meet an aunt, an uncle, my grandma. I guess my grandpa had passed away, and other siblings were other places, but it was a great opportunity. And because I was living in Korea, I was able to connect with her numerous times. And again, while that relationship was wonderful, meeting her, it felt like a long lost aunt for me. And it was still beautiful to see, and to also just give the family ease of like, it's okay. Like, it's okay what you did. And there, my uncle, he is the oldest uncle, and I guess he had already moved to Australia when his sister was pregnant and everything, and so had no idea I existed. And so he speaks fluent English. So he came to meet us one time, and he was the translator. But he was able to tell me, he's like, I'm so happy that I got to meet you as an adult, not like a kid, maybe as a teenager, because I see that it like you are okay. Like that this was, I'm way more comfortable with this, and I'm happy with this. I'm happy that you're happy. And it was great to do that, and also to talk with the grandma and say like she felt so guilty, like it had been a burden that she'd been carrying with her for years, because she was the one that pushed her daughter to put me up for adoption. And I was like, I understand, because you were protecting your daughter. You were protecting your daughter, unfortunately, from like this culture that doesn't accept single motherhood. And I was like, no, you did the right thing. Your daughter's been able to flourish, and I've luckily been able to flourish. And while I do believe that adoption is a trauma, I think that there is still some beautiful things that happen, but for me and for my birth mom and for the birth family. And I mean, and this is why like I wanted to create Pineapple Mindset, because I realized when I was meeting a lot of other adoptees, they were so angry. And while I do 100% believe that there is trauma and there are things to work through, but that it's not just a big thunderstorm rain cloud. There is some cloudy parts, but there are parts that like the sun shines through, and I want to help adoptees find those places, and to learn about having a pineapple mindset of one, being proud of who they are and their story and their uniqueness. And so that's about standing tall and wearing a crown, like what a pineapple does. And then being able to be vulnerable and sharing that with others, because a pineapple, while it's strong and it's really, it's prickly on the outside, the best part is the soft and juicy part on the inside, and you have to cut into it. And that's what people love about the pineapple, and that's what people love about you. And then the third is growing in a community. And so that is where a pineapple, that actually starts as separate berries and it grows into one large fruit. And so it's so cool with like, lean on your community, and a community can be whatever, like whatever you want it to be. But if you are able to be vulnerable and find some type of community that works with you, it's a beautiful thing to see, watch it grow. And like, I mean, social media has done that for me, of being able to connect with other adoptees. And it's to show that you're not alone and that you can lean on one another. And so that's my adoptee story. And that's how, and the reason why I started Pineapple.
Oh my gosh, Kay, I just freaking love you. I think you're adorable, and I absolutely love your story. And I love that, like, because for me, I've never really taken like adoption to be kind of like with trauma, but as I've seen your stuff, and like it really, like, I get it. There really is like that trauma that can be involved. So I just think that's beautiful that you do that, and you're advocating to help other adoptees see that it's like it can be hard and sticky and weird, but at the same time, you can still find those little bits of light. Like, I love that. I love that so much. What was I gonna ask? Are you there? Did it freeze?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm like, so I want to ask, did you tell your parents back like when you were little, kind of like the stuff that was going on with kids being mean to you? And how did your parents respond to that?
Oh, absolutely not. And that's another reason why one thing that I advocate for, especially when I talk and give advice to adopted parents, is any kid ain't going to tell you everything. And if your parent seems like there's nothing going wrong, or like never cries in front of you, or seems that like they, being more emotionless is like what you're supposed to do, right? Looking up to your parents, that's what they're going to try to emulate. And so anytime I remember like the bus was the worst. I would be just mocked and teased on the bus, and I would come home and I would, go to the bathroom, and then I would cry in the bathroom and like get it all out. And then I would go and like say hi to my mom, and no one would know. And I never wanted to tell my parents because I thought I would get in trouble, or I thought that I would get other people in trouble. And I didn't want them to have more ammo against me, to be mean to me.
Like the kids, you mean more ammo, like for the kids to have? Yeah. Do your parents know now?
Yes. And
Okay.
so, and that's been the most beautiful thing. So in therapy, while this again, she was my community for a little bit.
Yeah.
My therapist was the one person that I actually told everything to. And I felt, because I could tell her, be honest and be vulnerable, and then leave and be fake again. And while I don't suggest that for everyone, that's where I was at the moment. I wasn't ready to fully be vulnerable and fully open myself to everyone. So I had one little time where that's what happened. And then I could put on my armor and shield again and block everything out. But I realized that I needed to grow my community. If I was going to go to Korea, and if I was going to, be more independent, my parents are the only thing that is constant in my life. And so I brought my dad into a therapy session, and I was like, and I told the therapist, I was like, you'll need to ask the questions. You'll need to lead this conversation and help me answer things. Because I'm someone who I don't ever like to lie. And so if you ask me a question that can't be answered in like, oh yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm good. Then I will be honest. And that's a big thing with parents, is that like, if you're like, oh, like, how are you doing? I'm fine. Did you have a good day at school? Yeah. Being more specific of like, how was the bus ride? And you can maybe start vague. Did you talk to someone? Did anyone talk to you? Did you have fun on the bus? Did anything mean happen? And you start to dive down to more details, and they won't notice because they'll just start answering probably vaguely and be like, oh, okay. And then be like, yeah, I can start telling you more things. It's not 100% foolproof method, but it's a tip that I would give any parent.
Oh, I can 100% attest to that. Like it's crazy how much more like I can get out of my daughter, and even like my son now, they started kindergarten. And you don't have to like poke and prod. It's just kind of what you're saying. Like, how was your day? Did you make new friends? And then they kind of go into, yeah, I made a new friend. They moved, brand new into the school, those kinds of things. And then exactly, it opens up the conversation more. So I love that. I think that's great advice. Like just for anybody, like, yeah, parents, but like also maybe, if you see a friend struggling or something,
yes.
You're like, how are you? Fine. Okay. Well, we'll just, you know what I mean? You can dig, but you don't have to like dig. And the hard thing is like, kids are such assholes. And I have kids, but like, it really can be. And I know people are like, we don't call kids that. I'm like, but some kids really can be just so mean. It just broke my heart hearing your story about that. Cause like, you just don't.
Well, the guilt aspects haven't really been built yet. And the repercussion stuff haven't been built up yet. So they don't realize like, if they haven't been teased, right, or been hurt, that they don't really understand the powerful words. I hated the whole like words are just words, like just let it go and things like that. And like it's like, no, like actually words are one of the meanest things, because rarely will you be like hit or like thrown or physically injured.
Right.
It's the emotional pain and cuts and bruises inside that no one can see. So no one asks about it, and it just starts festering and festering. And that's kind of the same, bringing again back the pineapple, like, once there's like a little piece of like mold or like a little imperfection with inside the pineapple, no one sees it for a long time. It starts growing and growing and growing. until like all your insides, right, are just in pain. And then eventually, after a long time, maybe penetrates the outside. And so that's when we need to start sharing, to start being able, like, for the pineapple, cut it out and be able to remove it. And so you can keep growing and having that beautiful, like beautiful inside.
Oh, I just love it. And I don't know if you've really looked at my page or anything, but I'm all about like the self-love, and like I stand for it so much with my daughter and even my boys, because I feel like men are overlooked a lot, but I want my boys to see that too, like a mom who encompasses, and we're open, and but we don't put ourselves down. And when other people start to put themselves down, like it's just like, be nice to yourself. Like that's where I'm with you with the words thing. It drives me crazy because words, I feel cut and hurt way more than, yeah, like you're going to get punched, you're going to get a black eye. But there's things that have happened even in like my lifetime, like things have been said, they stick with me. And it was when I was little, and it's something you work to overcome every single day, but they still stick with you. And if like there's a situation that happens, it like triggers you, and then you're like, like,
There are memories I had in middle school, like vivid, of the mean things people said. And it can last. It will last.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's mindset training that changes, like, how are you going to react to that memory, right? That memory is a memory, that feeling is a feeling, that event happened, and I can't change what happened back there. But how am I going to react to it now and have it affect me now?
Yes. And I love that. And I love that you were so open about going to therapy. Like it's something, like, even though I feel like my adoption and stuff hasn't been very traumatic and stuff, I feel like I could still benefit going and talking about things that have happened through my life and this and that. Like it's something I've always wanted to do. And I know like my husband's totally on board with it, because I mean he's not adopted. He has no clue anything like that. And I'm with you. Like I've met my birth family, and there's just feelings that I feel like I still need to work through. And so I think that's amazing and wonderful. So I'm going to ask you, because I love how you said that you've given like advice to adoptees and adoptive parents. What are some of, let's go this, I mean, you've already talked about it, but some of like the best things of adoption that you would say for you, that you would tell other people? Like,
Oh, okay. So while this is my story and these are my feelings, I just want to be like very clear that, and because I'm leading this conversation of saying, like, I actually am really grateful that I was adopted. While I don't think anyone should put that on all of adoption, and I do not think that anyone should label that for someone else, it's something that I have learned and grown into, and it's taken me a while. And for me, it's because, adoption wasn't I don't want to say isn't the issue or the problem in Korea, in my opinion. Adoption was unfortunately a solution to the bigger issue of, unfortunately, women being impregnated, sometimes raped or lied to, and then the man leaves, and then also them not being able to be respected once they did have a child. So what some people don't know, and this is what I had to learn, is that, so when you apply for a job in America, it's pretty private. Like there's rules of things that they can't ask or like ask you to share. In Korea, you share everything. You have to. And so they would see your medical records and see that you had a child and that you have child. And they would be like, oh, I don't know if you can do this job. And while it's already harder for women to get positions, it's getting a lot better, but like it was hard enough for women to get positions. They wouldn't be able to, unfortunately, provide for a child the way that a potentially adopted family could do. And so I'm so grateful. And that's what I was able to tell the grandma of, like, you know what? Unfortunately, this, like, the culture and society wasn't going to accept her. You protected her. But you also protected me, allowing me to have the things that I needed to live. So thank you. Thank you. And so I'm grateful for that. And because I was an English teacher in Korea, I also know that like you can go to school from like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm so glad I did not have to do that as a kid. So there's also that gratefulness of like, you know what, I can just like go and play and I love it. But then also adoptions taught me that there are so many different ways to grow a family and different ways. And I think that's the unfortunate thing is that adoption is looked at as like the alternative. And that's a lot to do with like culture, like in movies. Um, there was like an Ocean's 11, I think, or some movie, maybe not Ocean's 11, but something. Um, and they couldn't have a kid. And the male was like, absolutely will not adopt. You can't grow, like you does not use grow. Like, I don't want someone else's kid. And that's actually said a lot in movies. And like that's what adoption's looked at. And something that once I was able to be vulnerable and talk with my family about all of this, I was straight up like, Dad, why did you adopt? And while it's like he always saw himself having a bigger family, he had a big family. He was like, it was just another way to grow a family. It was another way to, you know, see my family flourish. And so I love that was his terminology. And I loved that he did that because it's another way to grow. It's not an alternative. It's not the last choice or whatever. And that's how I'm looking at it now for myself of, while I'm not maybe eager to have kids right now, I look at adoption as like a beautiful way of like, I don't have a timeline. If I want to grow a family and like be a mom, there's so many ways. And I think that's beautiful.
I absolutely love that. Like, I love that.
And also adoption just giving me a story.
Yes.
No, go.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I second all of that about the whole adoption thing. I think it's beautiful. Go ahead, though.
And then just lastly, just like adoption being able to like, it makes me. Like that's now my identity. Like I identify as being a Korean adoptee. I don't identify as just being American. I don't identify as being just Korean. Like I'm American Korean adoptee. And I think it's beautiful. And when I was in Korea, I made sure everyone knew. And while that gave people some uncomfortableness, I learned very quickly how to say like I'm from America, but I was adopted from Korea. And so I learned to be like, yes, I am a Korean adoptee. And I was never afraid to tell that, even to a taxi driver.
No, I think that's amazing and awesome because I just seriously, when you can own it and know that it's like beautiful. And I love that you said, like, there's no one way to grow your family. And that's where, like, for me, I love adoption because I've seen what it's done for people. I've seen what it's done for myself, you know, and like you said, every adoption story is different. This is yours, mine is different. You know what I mean? Like, so, because there are some things with, you know, other people that I've talked to that hasn't been great. So going on that note, what would you say maybe are some of like the hard things about adoption that you've personally struggled with, or you've seen other people or something like that?
Yeah, it's these micro things. So like when I would go to my friends' houses and I would see their siblings and like family photos and like, oh, I just got so obsessed with like, oh, you have your dad's eyes or you have your mom's nose or like, you know, things like that. And you got to see kind of like what you were going to be when you grew up. And that really started hitting in, I think, like biology in middle school when we started learning about genetics. I was like, cool. I was the only adoptee in this class and doing an assignment that had me look into like what do you what you know features do you see, and I was like, oh, crap. And the teacher never even acknowledged that. Instead, I just felt like I was wrong. And also just being like the only Asian and being a transracial adoptee, I was the only one with monolids. I was the only one that had attached earlobes. It was a very like little things that made me feel so wrong, not different, not unique. I felt wrong and almost dirty. And then, and so again, that's due to unfortunately just like adoption not being talked about and like little things in school that should be changed. And then also just not the unfortunate thing with adoption is like you don't get to know your medical records. And so I started to learn that, right? Like when I start to be, I want to be independent. I want to fill out my own medical forms, mom and dad. And, it's like probably again closer to middle school or like earlier high school, or like when you turn 16, you're driving your own self to like a doctor's appointment and you're filling something out and you're like, NA. And like, but there's no place to say NA. There's no, what the heck? I literally, for the longest time when I was younger, started filling out things like, what did my mom have? What did my dad have? Like, what does Uncle John have, mom? And like, my parents never stopped me. I just wanted to, to fill the form out like fully. But it's just like, again, medical records should be changed of like, you were adopted. So this won't help you whatsoever. And that's also just a little bit scary of, like, oh, like my dad has high blood pressure, right? It's like, there's something I should look out for. And so for those two things, I'm just like, those are probably like the hardest things. And that's actually when I did my birth mom search in my letter, I said, like, tell her it is okay if she does not want to meet me. She doesn't have to meet me. She doesn't have to give me anything. Can she just tell me medical history? That's it. That's all I want. Because for me, that's like the most important thing. And I personally think that should be part of the adoption process of like, what do you know so far? While I understand like a birth mom or a birth dad's like health can definitely change. Like they find out they have like high blood pressure like 10 years later. But can you share these things as more?
No, I love that because that's something. My mom a little different though, like up front, she tried to get medical records, could never get them. And she was every time we went to the doctor, she is adopted. We don't know. But that doesn't mean that it didn't sting any less. Like, it's kind of like, what do you want me to say? I have no clue about me. And then when I finally did meet my birth mom, I was like, can I get stuff? She's like, oh, we're all just healthy people.
Same. And I'm like, that can't, I was like, do any of you else need eyeglasses? Like, because I was like, I have a lazy eye. I'm like, do anyone else have like knee problems? No, okay. And I was like, how did the grandfather die? Oh, just old age. And I was like, while I don't think they're intentionally lying to me, there are things that just like in translation, right? Like I'm not speaking directly to them and it's through a translator. And it sucks that I can't have that connection with them. And I can't explain the importance of like, please, I just want to prepare myself.
No, it's so true. And that's something, yeah, I think a lot of people can agree on being adopted because it's frustrating. Like it's 100% frustrating. So any other thoughts or anything like where can people find you? Those kinds of things, closing thoughts and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, one, this was so fun. I always enjoy just like meeting other adoptees and also just showing that to share your adoption story. And it's a beautiful thing about that vulnerability. And so, if you want to find out more about my story and more about what I do, you can go to www.pineapplemindset.com. You'll learn more about me being a keynote speaker, and so speaking from small to larger groups, also doing one-on-one coaching with adoptees. I also do like adoptee events and do coaching. And then also I have an online course called Lost to Leader. It's a self-paced video online course where it helps you learn how to grow your pineapple mindset and dives into trainings. And then, yeah, definitely check me out on social media. My handles are Pineapple Mindset, and you please connect with me. I am an open book for both adoptees, adoptee parents, parents that are looking to adopt, even birth moms, because I get it. The adoption, I know we call it a triad. I feel like it's more like a square right? Adoptees, adopting parents, birth moms, foster children. Wait, maybe I messed this up. Either way, but come connect with me. I love it. Share your story with me if you're comfortable. More than anything, I'm an ear and someone that you can lean on and help grow your community.
And seriously, like just the little bit that I've seen of Chloe on social media, she's adorable. And I love that she said yes to this because I got to know her and she's just got a beautiful soul and she's been through a lot and she's overcome a lot. And I love how she just advocates for adoption. And like, that's my favorite thing is meeting adoptees that are real honest, open, raw about it when it's hard. Yeah, hang on one second, okay? Okay, hang on. Okay, hang on. Kids. Anyway, we'll wrap this up. Gotta love my kids. But seriously, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to sit down and do this with me and go check Chloe out. I will tag her when I post this. I will probably go on my stories and talk about her and tag her as well. So that way, you guys, it's an easy click just to get to it. So seriously, Chloe, thank you so much. I'm excited to go even like look at your resources for myself. I may have to talk to you about that later. So anyway, seriously, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and doing this for me.
Absolutely.